the MS Michigan Man 64 podcast. My name is Brian Wallace, and I am the MS Michigan Man 64. The MS Michigan Man 64 podcast is about chronic disease awareness. I have had multiple sclerosis for the last 27 years. It's an invisible chronic disease that I've been battling for half of my life. I want to share with you what it is like living with the chronic disease from my experiences and the experiences of other chronic disease warriors. We can fight to have a voice to those that want to listen. Together, we can motivate and educate. Hi, welcome to the MS Michigan Man 64 podcast. Today I am sitting down with another chronic disease warrior that I met on social media a couple months ago. He is not multiple sclerosis though. This guy has been battling Parkinson's for the last 22 years. And he is still up and mobile and walking around, and he is just such an inspirational story. I am talking to Shakey. How you doing, Shakey?
I'm good, Brian. How are you?
I am doing all right, my friend. So, Shakey, you got diagnosed with Parkinson's 22 years ago. I'm a multiple sclerosis guy, so I'm not even really that familiar with Parkinson's. I just know of like the Michael J. Fox type thing, you know, what we see in the media. But can you explain what Parkinson's is and, you know, your journey and how you got diagnosed with it?
Right. Parkinson's is a movement disorder. Parkinson's takes away your movement. It slows everything down. It slows down how fast your body will move, how fast you will think. It just takes away everything. And it's caused by dopamine in your brain that run your electrical signals. It dies for some reason. So when the dopamine dies, the electrical signals don't work, and then that causes your motion disorder. And I was diagnosed with young onset. When I was diagnosed, it seemed like young onset was a new thing. And all the information, I was diagnosed before the internet, and the Parkinson's organizations that were out there had information on like traditional Parkinson's, people that get diagnosed in their late 60s.
Okay.
I was 44 when I was diagnosed. And then before I was diagnosed with Parkinson's, actually I was 20 years old when I realized that I had a very slight tremor. I had it all through the 20s, but it didn't bother me. It didn't slow me down. It didn't keep me from doing anything I wanted to do. And then when I turned 30 and went in for my first physical, at the end of my physical, the doctor wanted to talk about my tremor. And that was the first time I had realized that somebody else had noticed, you know, that I had a tremor. And it was just my family doctor, and he said, you have essential tremors. And he said, it's just a benign tremor that a lot of people get. It's just very mild. It won't get bad. It won't turn into Parkinson's or anything like that. And what I heard from every year for the next 13 years. And if you try and remind me, we'll come back to this diagnosis here in a little while. But then at 2001, my tremors really got off the hook. I was under a really stressful job at the time, and the stress really messed with it, but I didn't know it at that time. And my primary symptoms at that time when it got bad was my tremor just got really bad, and I was losing volume in my voice. So, and then finally got into the neurologist. They do a battery of tests, watch the way you walk, they check your joints, how they move and stuff. And the doctor said, you have one of three things. You have something called Wilson's disease, you have Parkinson's disease, or you have a brain tumor. So I went home that day and like, hey, what do I wish for?
Yeah, right.
And
my God.
So the Wilson's disease was really easy to cross off the list, and that was the first thing that happened. So then it was either Parkinson's or a brain tumor, and they set me up for an MRI, and it came back negative for a brain tumor. So my diagnosis was Parkinson's. And then this was my second visit with the doctor. He came in and told me that it was Parkinson's, and he told me they were going to start a very aggressive a treatment for it, put me on meds, and he also told me I just took a new job. I'm moving out of state, and I'm going to have to place you with a new doctor.
Oh, jeez.
So
God,
the next month, I saw a motion disorder specialist who specializes in Parkinson's and was supposed to be. It was put to me, she's one of the best doctors in the Midwest, and there's people come from out of state to see this doctor. And so I went to see her. She confirmed my diagnosis as young onset Parkinson's. And this was at my very first visit with her. She told me I had young onset Parkinson's disease, and she told me that Parkinson's was progressive, incurable, and that I'd never get better. Wow. And she was going to continue the aggressive drug treatment, and that I needed to go home and find a comfortable chair or a couch to sit on to watch TV so I wouldn't be out doing anything where I would fall and hurt myself, and that I needed to get my affairs in order because I would be in a nursing home within the next 5 years.
Oh my God.
So
I can't believe
introduction to Parkinson's.
I can't believe that a doctor would actually say that to a patient. I couldn't imagine when I got diagnosed with MS, if a doctor would have said, hey, Brian, you might as well get your affairs in order. You're going to be in a wheelchair in another 10 years. I would have been like, are you kidding me? How did you react to that when the doctor said that to you?
Well, I spent the next 3 months in bed, basically.
Yeah.
I'm just depressed, and depression just killed me at that time. So
yeah, I can only imagine. Yeah.
And then to send you home to tell you that and send you home and then give you no resources. Looking back on this now, you think you would hook somebody up with a mental health person or some kind of help.
Yeah.
You're just dealing with the disease, and then you're supposed to get your affairs in order on top of it. And it was a hard thing to deal with for several years.
I couldn't imagine that, Shakey. And you're still, and so you're basically right then and there, you're done with your ability to work. I mean, do you have to go out on disability and all that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the first thing was recommended to do was to file for disability. Yeah. And that's a good story about disability. I don't know if anybody else has talked about disability, but so file for disability, and it took some months to get, and immediately did this, was file for disability. And it took, so this was in November when I got diagnosed, and I'm going to say this was probably April or May before I heard from got an appointment with a Social Security doctor. Mm-hmm. And it was really strange because he didn't start seeing patients till like 5 o'clock. So, we get there early, and this waiting room held probably 25 or 30 people, and we're just in there shoulder to shoulder to shoulder in this waiting room. And people are just coming in, going out, coming in, going out. And I get called back finally, and it was a doctor. He was some Asian doctor, and he could barely speak English. And he had me walk down the hall and back. He looked at my arm, and he says, "You don't have Parkinson's," and he walked out the door. And he was with me less than 2 minutes.
Oh my God! So, So you had to go. So you basically got denied, saying that you didn't
Right.
have Parkinson's, and then you had to fight.
Right.
You had to fight that.
So I had two diagnoses from two different doctors, one being both neurologists, one being a emotion disorder specialist, but I know how Parkinson's. So,
Wow. So how long? How long did it end up taking to get it all approved?
2 years.
2 years.
So you send in an application, you get denied. You send in the application again. I'll call it an application. There's probably a better word for it. Comes back denied, and then the third time you can get an attorney, and you get a face-to-face in front of a Social Security judge. So I found an attorney, Social Security attorney, and we met the day before my appointment to see the judge, and we were going over our case, and he said, normally I have an idea. So some judges are more likely to grant your Social Security. Other judges, it's a battle to get your Social Security, and you're going to be the first person. We have a new judge, and you're going to be the first person in front of her. So went in there. They have a Social Security doctor, and the doctor sits there. He says, "Yes, I can tell he has tremors and stuff that appear to be Parkinson's. There's no really work available." And we didn't even present half our case, and the judge granted me the approval. And the thing was, at 44, I met all the criteria, Social Security's criteria for Parkinson's disease to be approved. The only problem was I was 44. I wasn't 50. If I had been 50, I would have been granted it the first time.
Yeah. Wow. That's just so.
It finally worked.
It's just so unbelievable, the stories I hear that people have to go through to get their disability approved. And, like 2 years, 3 years. And on top of that, they're dealing with a chronic disease. And on top of that, it's affecting their mental health, and they have no income. And yeah, it's really sad how people with chronic disabilities are treated by our own government.
Right. It is terrible. It really is. Yeah. And then let me just back up to my initial diagnosis of essential tremors. So I get this diagnosed in December. I go to see my this doctor, my family doctor, for my annual visit, and that's like May or June. And back there, that was before computers, and they had a big manila that your file was in a manila folder. It was full of papers.
Yeah, right.
And when the doctor would come down the hall, you could hear him pick up the file out of the file holder on the back of the door. And I heard a bunch of mumbling. And he storms in the door, and he starts yelling at me, "Why did you lie to me? Why? Why did you lie to me?" And he yelled at me and yelled at me. And then he opened the door, and he went back in the hall, and he slammed the door behind him, and I heard him out there stomping his feet, and he was yelling and cussing, and he stormed anger in my face. "Why did you lie to me?" "What did I lie about?" He said, "You told me you never done hard drugs. You told me you never smoked crack or meth." He says, "And the only way that you can have Parkinson's at your age is to be smoking hard drugs, and you lied to me." And then he took my file like a shortstop throwing to first base, and he threw my file overhand, and it hit the wall and crashed to the floor. And he left my room and slammed the door behind him. That was the last I ever saw of him.
That's unbelievable, Shakey. I'm like
speaking. How the fuck are you supposed to deal with that?
Yeah, right. Yeah, I can't even imagine anybody having to go through that. So you got put on all of these Parkinson's meds, and I know now, because you've had it 22 years, and now you don't take any of these meds. Kind of take us through, those first 11 years, and then, what happened and how you made the decisions to cut the meds out, because I definitely want to hear that.
Okay. The meds, I said, they just kept working me up to the maximum amount. And it took several months to get me worked up to the maximum amount. The maximum amount was 27 milligrams a day of this drug. And then you go back every few months, and they're going to add a drug here. They're going to add another one. They're going to bump it up. They bump stuff down. They take stuff away. It was a guinea pig. And that's what it felt like, because every time I went in, these additional drugs they had me on besides the main drug, and it was always change. And they said that we didn't have the internet, and they didn't warn me about the side effects. And the side effects were worse than the meds. The lack of sleep, just being on that tied to the clock, but I had a sex addiction. I was addicted to strip clubs. It just kicked in one day, and that's all
a side effect of the Parkinson's medications.
Yeah, it was a well-known side effect of the Parkinson's medication.
Wow, I never knew
and
that.
And then gambling. And then one day, all of a sudden, I started gambling, and I was playing Texas Hold'em all the time. And that's another effect of the side effects of that drug. And in fact, I knew a woman. She was a friend of mine on Facebook. She lived in Kansas City, and she got caught up with the gambling addiction part of it and spent all her money. And she was a CFO for a company, and she started using company money to gamble on.
Oh,
and when it went to court, the judge wouldn't accept that gambling was a side effect of the medicine, and she actually went to prison.
Oh, my God.
Because of a side effect of the medicine. And it's just horrible. And they know this, and they still put people on this.
Yeah.
And it's just criminal.
So
anyway, I just suffered through the years with the side effects of the medicine and the disease. And then I was like 14 years in, and I had a nervous breakdown. And I checked myself into mental health, and was detoxed with the intent of starting me over on meds. And
so they were detoxing you off of the meds that were already in your system, only to ultimately put you back on them.
Correct. And when the neurologist came, they finally had me detoxed. They sent the neurologist in, and I refused to go back on them. And so not only were they doing with this, they were working with my mental health, trying to get me on an antidepressant. And I went through a handful of different antidepressants, and every one they put me on ended up making me more suicidal than I already was. Wow. So I tried doing the mental health thing for a while, and it just wouldn't work for me. And then when I finally went back to see my regular Parkinson's doctor, she was furious I wasn't on medicine, and she wanted me back on meds immediately, wanted to start. And I told her no, that I wasn't going back, that I'd been through that hell. I wasn't going back to that. And she told me, well, if you're not going to do what I tell you, there's really no need for me to see you. So I walked out of the office, and I gave her the finger, and I walked out with no intention to ever going back.
So she basically told you, if you're not going to take your meds, I don't want to see you anymore. There's no reason for you to come see me.
Exactly what she said. If you're not going to do what I tell you, there's no need for you to come back in.
Wow. That's just...
After being the hell that I had been through.
Wow. So, okay, so now you're without without a doctor, and you're not taking your meds. So what happens then? I mean,
so I was... It was March 21st, 2016, and I was stage 4 Parkinson's at that point in time. I had lost my facial expression. I had lost, my voice was just a whisper. I was losing my ability to swallow, which caused me to drool. And then because I was drooling, I choked quite frequently.
Yeah.
I dependent on a cane for a few years. So I had to use a cane to be able to push myself up, to stand up. I could just walk really, really short distances. And I really hadn't thought about it. Like I say, there still wasn't, I wasn't aware of anybody. The internet was a little bit more of a thing then, but I don't remember seeing anybody on the internet saying, you know, they were doing this or that, make their Parkinson's better. And I just got up March 21st of 2016. I went in and I looked myself in the mirror and I told myself, I'm going to beat this shit or I'm going to die trying.
No shit.
And as complicated and simple as that. And the only thing that I had to do was to walk. I had to walk.
Yeah.
Because I just kept losing ground by the month.
Yeah.
So I decided I was going to walk around the block. And the first I couldn't make it all. I had to stop several times to rest to get around the block. But I get out day and the next day and the next day, and I walked every day the entire summer up until Halloween. And at a point in time, I went from using a cane. I got a set of trekking sticks, so I had one stick in each arm, and I lost 60 pounds from March until to Halloween. I'd lost 60 pounds.
Wow.
And started going to boxing classes because they found out that a boxing workout will help reverse the progression of Parkinson's. And the harder I worked, the stronger I got. The stronger I got, the harder I worked. And then when cold weather got here in the October, excuse me, there was a local gym that had a walking track. So I would go to the gym. I came up with a routine of 5 exercises that I came up with for myself. And then I would go in and I'd do a set of my exercises, and then I'd go walk for 15 minutes. And I'd come back and I'd do another set of exercises, and then I'd walk. So it took me 18 months to work myself from late stage 4 Parkinson's back to a strong stage 3 Parkinson's.
Wow.
The same where I am right now. I haven't had any progression for the last about 6.5 years. I haven't had any progression. Well, I guess longer than that. From 2016, I haven't really had any progression. I've just pushed the progression back, and I've been able to hold it.
That is just so unbelievably awesome to hear that story about how you just one day looked yourself in the mirror, got an attitude, and said, you know what, I'm going to go down with a fight, and you know, screw Parkinson's. I'm gonna take control of this disease. And that's just so unbelievably inspirational, Shakey, that you did all this on your own without meds, and you actually are walking regularly with no issues, you know, compared to where you were before. That's just so unbelievable.
Right. So I have cognitive, some cognitive issues. It's really hard for me to, my sister keeps my bank for me. She deals with a lot of the things that stress me out, like doctor's offices and billing and crap like that. But physically, I'm killing it right now.
Like I said, I see your videos you put out, and you're always walking. And talk about this, the miles that you walk for the Michael J. Fox Foundation and all that, because I love that story too.
Okay, so I've spent a lot of time in the gym, boxing classes. I really thrived in that, but I've kind of gotten away from that. It's really been kind of toxic for me. The environment was toxic. I really couldn't find one that's worked out. So the other big part has just been the walking from the beginning. And in 2019, April of 2019, there's a guy named Jimmy Choi, and Jimmy's younger than I am, but he was diagnosed in the same time frame I was. And Jimmy has worked himself. He's a ninja warrior. He's been on America's Ninja Warrior a handful of times. He's just an incredible athlete. And he puts on a walk in April, excuse me, up in Chicagoland. So we went up for that, and it was a really cold day. We got to meet him. And while I was up there, I heard about this app called Charity Miles, and they will sponsor the miles. If you walk or run or bicycle, they will sponsor your miles for charity. And then one of the charities they had was Michael J. Fox Foundation. Mm-hmm. So it just kind of went hand in hand. I was already walking. Okay, I can make a little money for them. And so I started out, and I don't remember offhand. I think I walked around 600 miles that year from April till October. And pretty much every year that's my schedule. Whenever it gets warm enough to walk without being very cold out, it could be March, could be April, it might be as late as May, but I get out there when it gets warm, and I normally walk till Halloween when it gets cold, and then just pick and choose my days. But this year, I decided I was going to suck it up, embrace the suck, and I was going to walk in the cold weather. So I had started out with a goal to walk 1,000 miles, actually 1,003 miles, because that was the record 3 years ago. I walked 1,002 miles. So I was going to walk 1,003 miles this year. And it just got out of hand. I don't know. Something was right, and my recovery was I had really good recovery this year. And I was getting out there day after day, doing 10-mile days.
That's amazing.
I walked a lot of 10-mile days this year, but long story short, I ended up walking. My total miles that I walked for the year was 1,713 miles for the year. And this is my 6th year walking for the Michael J. Fox Foundation, and I'm at 55. I'm on my way to 5,500 miles.
That is
walk. So
that is unbelievable. And just for people that are listening, how old are you, Shakey?
I'm 66. I'll be 67 in April.
67 years old and walking that much. It's just mind blowing. With Parkinson's, you are a badass. That's all I can say. And I absolutely just love your attitude, and just like your story of how you got diagnosed and what you went through. It's like you had two halves of your lives. Your first half with Parkinson's on the meds, and then your second half when you said, no, you know what, screw this, I'm going to do this my way. And it's just an unbelievable story. And I am so glad that I have gotten the opportunity to meet you.
Yeah, I've had 2 experiences with Parkinson's. The first time, Parkinson's nearly killed me. And if I had listened to my doctor, I would have been dead long ago. And then I've had this other chance with Parkinson's, and Parkinson's is a thieving bastard. He takes and he takes and he takes and he takes. And you just have to decide, are you going to be a victim or are you going to fight back?
Yeah.
And there was nobody ever to show me that I could fight back and beat Parkinson's, but I want to let other people know that they can do it. It's hard work. Not everybody's going to do it. Everybody's going to have the opportunity. But if you really want to put the work in and you can do it, you can improve the quality of your life.
Yeah. Amen, brother. I know a lot of multiple sclerosis. It's attitude. I believe it is, because I was 27 when I got diagnosed, and, I knew that it was a disabling disease, and I just got that attitude right off the rip. I'm like, oh, hell no, I'm going down with a fight if this thing's going to take me out. Now,
and it's
Yeah.
I feel that a lot of Parkinson's,
Yeah.
let's say, in my was forced helplessness. The doctor's telling there's nothing you can do. There's nothing you can do. It was just beating my head over and over. And then when I started getting better, I wanted this same doctor to see me. So I called. This was in the fall of, I think, August of 2016. So just a half a dozen months after I started on my recovery.
Mm-hmm.
And I called to make an appointment to see this doctor again. And it took 51 weeks to get in to see her.
Jesus.
51 weeks.
Okay.
And that's typical.
Yeah, that's a year. That's crazy.
So, but I thought, I've got all this time now to work even harder. And when I walked in there without a cane, and her jaw hit the floor. Really? And she put her hand over her mouth, and she goes, "You're a medical miracle."
Wow.
And I said, "No." She goes, "Well, how did you get better?" I said, "It's been all this work that I put in."
Yeah.
And she says, "Well, exercise fixes a lot of things. It's got to be something else."
Yeah.
And this doctor has never clapped for me one time after giving me a terminal diagnosis. Never one time. And the next year it was, "You're a medical miracle." Yeah. And then it was, "Do you really think you have Parkinson's now?"
Really?
And yeah, I have Parkinson's. Well, why do you think you got better? It's because of all the work I put in. All this physical work has changed things.
Yeah.
And she goes, yeah. But if you have Parkinson's, you have to be on meds. And that was her last. You still have to be on meds.
Yeah.
It's just criminal. It's criminal.
Yeah. I know that exercise is, to me, is so important with, I mean, it's just important in general in life, but especially when you get that chronic disease, you can't sit and just wait for it to take over your life. You have to fight and if it's just walking 20 feet and you do that every day until you can walk 25 feet and then you keep on going until you can walk 30, it's a constant fight, and you have to have that attitude that you want to do it. Right.
And then, so that's just, I've been thinking about this all fall and stuff. So this is my new thing, the walking, this continue to see how many miles I get. I was just looking at my app, and I'm at 5,125 total miles walked for the Fox Foundation. So my next goal is 375 miles to hit the 5,500 mile total miles walked. And then the next goal will be another 500, and that'll be to get me to 6,000. And that's just what I'm going to continue to do, is just see how many miles that I can rack up as a Parkinson's, as a Parky.
Man, you are just, you're a warrior. And like I said, you're a badass. When I found you, I didn't believe it at first. I'm like, there's no way in the world this guy's had 22 years of Parkinson's and he's doing what he's doing. And it's just amazing. I am so glad that I had the opportunity to meet you, Shakey. I would love to have you on again to talk about Parkinson's. It's another chronic disease that I just think that people just don't understand fully, just like multiple sclerosis.
Well, that'd be great. I'd love to come back on again if you'd have me. And yeah, it's just, so that's what I do. The miles that I walk is to, primarily they're for me. That's what helps me beat the progression of my Parkinson's. And then second, if we can make a little money for the Fox Foundation, that's a bonus. And then if we can spread awareness for Parkinson's, for PTSD, because that's another thing I've had to deal with, PTSD, and spread some Parkinson's or PTSD awareness along the way. And it all just works as one thing. So
yeah. Amen.
I can do it.
Yeah. Amen, Shakey. I thank you so much for joining me. I also, thanks for everybody that's listening, and reminding you to share and follow, hit the subscribe button. If you want to comment on anything, go ahead and put some comments down there. And again, Shakey, thank you so much for joining me. And this is MS Michigan Man 64. I am out until the next episode.